farmers once tilled their fields here. Now this is the site of the most productive gold mine in the world. The American concern, Newmont, has been mining gold here since the early 90s. The gold is separated with highly toxic cyanide, which places an enormous burden on the groundwater.
Perhaps many times we've overemphasized the importance of men and women, and that somehow we have to dominate the creation. I would say, instead of dominating in the sense of that it's ours to do whatever we want with it, we better be careful of our creation, and we better take care of it. That we have to be stewards of creation. We have to love the creation. We have to love the trees and the plants and the forest and the rivers and the animals. We can't mistreat them.
A view which Marco Arana has shared now for many years. This Catholic priest knows all about the disastrous ecological and social consequences of mining. In 2002, he founded the human rights organization Grufides as a counterpole to the powerful Yanacocha gold mine. Since then, Arana has taken on the task of supporting and advising farmers affected by its operations. In 2004, he was awarded Peru's National Human Rights Prize for his work. Within the Catholic Church in Peru, however, his social commitment is a controversial issue. Yet, the farmers are in sore need of help because the fight for land and gold is sometimes a life or death struggle. For example, when they don't want to sell their land to the mining company. Marco Arana and his colleague from the Catholic aid organization, Miserior, have come to visit the family of Edmundo Ferreira Cotrina. For months, the 42-year-old farmer's leader refused to sell his land to the mine. Then he was murdered, shot 22 times. Marco Arana shares the family's grief. Edmundo is not the first victim of this conflict. He was killed right in front of his sister.
These two suspicious characters appeared and approached my brother. I saw them coming. The one wearing a red poncho shook hands with Edmundo, and the one in a blue poncho fired twice at him. When the second shot hit my brother, he fell to the ground. While he was lying there, as they walked away, they opened fire again, one from the left, the other from the right. They looked at my brother while they were shooting him.
The family still hasn't sold its land to the mining company, thanks partly to the support it's received from Marco Arana.
I feel a mixture of grief and rage, because I had known Edmundo for several years, and I know how much the family spent on his education. Most people here only attend primary school, and nearly all the women are illiterate. It was a struggle for the family to pay for Edmundo's education. But through it, he would have been able to help not only his family, but also the community as a whole. Because he could read, for example, Edmundo was able to stand up to the mining company. Through his murder, one of this community's real treasures has been destroyed. And that makes me furious.
Miserior has supported Marco Arana and his local aid organization for many years. Peru is rich in mineral resources. In itself, the land is valuable, like that of murder victim Edmundo. His house now stands empty. His wife and children live with relatives. A few toys lie around. The mining company likes to distribute bucket wheel excavators to the children here.
The basic right to water, to land, and to food must be respected, even if the locals are just poor farmers. If rich people with large estates lived here, the discussion would often look quite different, and that's unacceptable.
We head down into the valley, into the mining town of Cajamarca. The police don't want to talk to us about their inquiries into Edmundo's murder. The family's suspicion that the Yanacocha gold mine is behind the killing is a subject of fierce debate. After all, the mine is the biggest employer in the region. At the moment, Edmundo's murder is also the #1 topic of conversation at Grufides and for Marco Arana too. This committed priest has himself received a number of threats, so now he only leaves home with personal protection. Through the help of a reporter, we managed to get an appointment with the public prosecutor. He dismisses claims that the gold mine might be involved in Edmundo's death.
It
is true that such rumors are circulating, but we act in line with the documents in our files.
Bajo documentos que existen en el expediente.
When we spoke to Edmundo's family and also to other members of the community, not one of them claimed that there was a hard and fast link between the killers and the family, or that Yanacocha could be made responsible for the murder. In other words, in our files, in all the statements made by the Becerra family and by other members of the community, there are no solid facts indicating a direct connection between the two alleged killers and the Yanacocha gold mine.
30,000 farmers in the region around the mine see their livestock and their land threatened by Yanacocha and its excavators.
Minera Yanacocha, como ustedes ven,
the Yanacocha mine is expanding by leaps and bounds and causing major problems. It's destroying our water, our plants and our animals. The mine owners respect no one. They show no consideration for others. They only do what serves their own interests, regardless of anything or anyone else.
The most important demand is that the local inhabitants be included in decisions on mining projects, that they be given all necessary information and not simply bought out at a moment's notice, with the result that a year or two later they face problems. They've no idea what they're going to live off, because the money they were paid 1, 2, 3, or even 10 years ago has all gone. So they don't know how they're going to survive.
Down in the valley, the suburbs of Cajamarca are where the losers of the gold rush live. Farmers who, in the early 90s, had to sell their land to the mine for a pittance. Back then, the mine paid them $25 a hectare. Yet, in surrendering their land, the farmers lost everything. Around 1,000 families were robbed of their livelihood in this way. Ministering to the poorest of the poor. This is how Marco Arana sees his Christian duty, providing pastoral care for those who otherwise have no one. A few former farmers are putting up a fight against the injustice of the past. Today, they'd get $3,000 for a hectare of land. Now they're demanding compensation from the Newmont mining company. They've drawn up an exact list of how much land and how many animals each family lost.
In the past, we lived from agriculture and livestock farming. That provided us with sufficient food. We lacked nothing. But now we beg our way through life. Why? Because here in Cajamarca, we have to struggle the whole day long in order to earn money. If we don't work, we have nothing.
We're done for. Our lives are over. I have 2 children to bring up. How am I supposed to pay for their education when I have nothing left? I have no animals anymore.
Marco Arana and his human rights organization, Gulfides, are fighting for the farmers' rights. The priest can be seen regularly in the vicinity of the mine.
This water channel is fed from a source in the Black Mountain. 2 years ago, Yanacocha opened another mine there. The channel was dug by farmers to irrigate their fields, but the mine's operators diverted the water to meet their own needs. The farmers protested, and there were lots of clashes. Here, you can still find the casings of the tear gas bombs which the police used against the campesinos. The mine simply claimed that this channel had never existed, yet 140 families are dependent on it.
Industrial gold mining with dangerous consequences. But despite the escalating violence, Marco Arana has never considered giving up, even though the mine owners promised him $8,000 if he'd change sides. His efforts in the cause of nature and mankind are more important to him.
Creation, nature, was entrusted to us so that we might preserve it. But here, it's being destroyed for purely economic reasons. Quite irrationally too, because most of the gold ends up as jewelry. And, above all places, in a headwater region where nothing is more precious than water. Indeed, probably in every religion and every culture, water represents the very essence of life.
Gold from the Peruvian Andes for jewelry buyers in the industrialized world. A lucrative business. And not only for the company, it's also an important source of foreign exchange for the Peruvian government. Most of the 10,000 workers, however, earn only slightly more than the legal minimum wage, $200 a month.
The work is really dangerous, especially on the night shift when sleep overcomes you. You really have to battle to stay awake.
12-hour shifts at an altitude of 4,000 meters, back-breaking work, yet only a fraction of the men get a warm meal. 80% are temporary workers without any security and no say in things. It was because of the poor working conditions at Yanacocha that 4 years ago the workers founded a trade union. Its goals are better wages, moderate working hours, and contracts that last longer than 3 months.
We demand that the Yanacocha company here in Cajamarca adhere to the labor laws. There must be no discriminating against workers. And not only that, the gold that is mined here must also bring development to this region. Because here in Cajamarca, there is no development.
The trade union leader is not alone in his criticism. The gold mine is the main subject of conflict in Cajamarca. A Sunday service in the parish of Marco Arana and Father Segungo. The effects the mine is having are discussed openly. The church here sees its role not only in preaching the gospel, but also in striving to preserve creation and provide active support for the poorest of the poor. But the community is divided. Some also see the economic benefits of the gold mine.
My life has changed, thank God, because my husband found a job at the gold mine. Everybody says that now, because of the mine, there's lots of environmental pollution. But I believe the firm is behaving in a responsible way. To tell the truth, The situation in Cajamarca has got worse. Water is in short supply. And besides, we're all scared to drink it. Because of the many chemical additives, there's a strange taste to it. In the past, we used to drink the water here without thinking. It tasted so good. Furthermore, today we're also scared of getting cancer, because recently cases have been occurring in Cajamarca.
Sí, minería, precios justos, salarios justos.
We say yes to mining, where there are fair prices and proper wages, but that's not the case. We say no to mining where it leads to immorality, where the population is threatened. There are villages which have been deprived of water. We say that mining must never be permitted in places where people's livelihood is threatened.
And Cajamarca is no isolated case in Peru. 300 kilometers further north in the mountains, around the small town of Huancabamba, the local inhabitants are threatened by a similarly large mining project. Here, the Monterrico Metals Mining Concern plans to open up one of the biggest copper mines in Peru. The planned mine is a threat to social harmony. Demonstrations are held for and against the project, and here too, there have even been acts of violence. Up to now, this region on the border with Ecuador has remained completely untouched. Many villages can only be reached by donkey or on foot. What farmers here lack most of all is objective information. Biologist Fidel Torres has carried out a study of the environmental risks presented by the planned copper mine. He and Father Gerardo Culler visit remote villages, talking to farmers about the opportunities and risks involved and informing them of their rights. Named Rio Blanco, the copper mine is scheduled by the company management to commence operations in 2011, even though an opinion poll showed more than 90% of the population are against it. Scientists like Fidel Torres are alarmed. Mining 100,000 tons of copper a year would pollute tributaries of the Amazon basin and destroy large areas of tropical mountain forest, a real threat to man and the environment.
The possibility of developing Peru's rural regions depends, as it does here, on the intactness of the environment and its biodiversity. But the international mining concerns, with their highly contaminating production methods, are simply destroying the economic future of this society.
Simplemente eliminan el futuro económico de estas sociedades. Y como son
And since these companies only operate with high-tech systems, there are no jobs for the local inhabitants. The firms exploit mineral resources and lessen the chances of ecological products being extracted.
At
the ministry in Lima, they can't understand the concerns. Here, mining is seen merely as a welcome source of revenue.
The people, the communities who live in the area around the mine, don't know much about these things, about the environmental aspects, the steps which the company takes to keep all the emissions under control, so to speak. Indeed, we operate a system of control and supervision within the firms.
The only institution that the people still have a high regard for, even with all our limitations, all our faults, all our weaknesses, all our frailty, the people still trust the church, you know. So we cannot let the people down.
A huge artificial mountain saturated with highly toxic cyanide. The result of gold being extracted from the ground at the Yanacocha mine. What's more, mercury occurs, a dangerous waste product which has to be disposed of at great cost. 5 entire mountains have been devoured already by the mine's voracious bucket wheel excavators. Recent years have seen the environmental problems increase dramatically. Because of the massive amount of water consumed by the mine, farmers are experiencing crop failure. The loose earth that is piled up causes toxic dust storms, and the cyanide pollutes rivers, endangering people and animals. The worst catastrophe so far was the mercury disaster of June 2000.
The truck transporting the mercury was driving through the middle of the village. That's the way the road goes, when the mercury leaked out. People came out of their homes and saw it glittering in the street. They thought it was a precious metal because it had come from a gold mining company.
I ran home, grabbed a spoon, and tried to collect it. Since it was evening, the mercury could be seen glittering all over the road. I wanted to collect it with my bare hands, but that's just impossible.
People here are still sick even today, says this boy. Lots of journalists have been to report on the situation, but nothing has changed. The mining company simply wants to pay them off. But their lives can't be bought. Their lives are worth more than gold. Several people died, others went blind. Skin rashes, dizziness, nosebleeds, memory problems. The effects of chronic mercury poisoning are still evident today. The mine paid the villagers $6 for each kilogram of mercury they collected. No one was warned, let alone evacuated. People took the mercury home with them. That was 9 years ago, yet many houses are still contaminated. Today, new dangers threaten the villages. The company wants to extend its mining operations, so support from Marco Arana is more important than ever. Edmundo's murder has again made this patently clear to everyone.
The mine says it operates with clean technology, that there'll be no pollution and no damage caused. So why are you frightened? What is your experience of the mine?
The Yanacocha concern and the government say there'll be no harmful effects, but that's a lie. Where mining starts, the water is contaminated and there's vast environmental damage. In Yanacocha, lakes and irrigation channels have either vanished or been polluted. People and animals are sick.
Marco Arana's support for the farmers and the advice he gives them is a thorn in the side for many in Cajamarca. In the run-up to the planned extension of the mine, he and the staff of Grufides, the human rights organization, are being systematically persecuted. But despite constant death threats and chicanery, he presses on, resolutely confronting the mine with his demands.
Where Yanacocha is concerned, what the campesinos and we ourselves demand is for the mine to monitor the quality of the water, the soil and the air. And it must also make constant checks on people's health and on any risks to it.
Despite all the gold that's mined, Yanacocha and the struggle for land and wealth has turned the inhabitants of the Cajamarca region into paupers. Peruvian poverty statistics now show the town in second place, yet only a few years ago it was still the 9th poorest region. But Marco Arana and Grufides have also enjoyed some success. Up to now, their resistance has stopped the gold mine expanding its operations to the Cerro Quilish, a sacred mountain, a ray of hope in the farmers' seemingly futile fight against the gold mine. Wealth goes, but poverty stays, something the people of northern Peru know from bitter experience. But even so, Edmundo's brothers and sisters want to remain here, even if they have no idea how they're going to manage. Had it not been for the help they've received from Marco Arana, they would probably have given up already.
Así como él dio su vida por defender el agua, nosotros también seamos capaces de seguir su ejemplo para defender el agua y la vida de esta comunidad.
The committed priest is giving them the courage to peacefully oppose the disastrous consequences of mining in Peru.